It all started in the 1880s, a time where nobody trusted anything other than trains and carriages to get them from one place to the next. But two men would simultaneously change the game by pioneering modern cars as we know them today. They would leave behind a legacy that would go on to survive 2 world wars and subsequent economic meltdowns. That legacy is Mercedes-Benz, and it's worth over $70 billion today. Unfortunately, the story of this company's rise to success would not be complete without mentioning how they joined a string of German manufacturing companies that profited off the backs of forced laborers in the Nazi era. How did Mercedes-Benz get to such a low point? And how did it move on from this? Stay tuned to find out. One thing that history makes very clear is that Adolf Hitler loved touring the streets while giving that Nazi salute to a cheering crowd. As expected for a man of his political standing, he had an armored Daimler-Benz limousine built for himself. Just like other aspects of German society, Mercedes-Benz was co-opted by Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. As such, the automobile company played a very vital role in the German war industry. But in order to stay afloat amidst the war, Mercedes-Benz took some very questionable actions. To begin with, the German automotive industry was still tackling the high inflation and other crises that remained after the First World War. For one, there were tons of more important things to do, like rebuilding and the recovering of losses, and nobody was interested in getting a car. The German currency had collapsed, and along with that, its importance on the foreign market. Not to mention the rise of new foreign automobile producers like Ford, these foreign companies also had a luxury that Mercedes-Benz didn't. They were all supported by the Treaty of Versailles. So by the time the Second World War broke out in September 1939, it's not hard to imagine that the company would face even more challenges. By 1942, every aspect of Mercedes-Benz had come to a standstill except the production of trucks and other military components. As there was no demand for civilian passenger cars, the company decided to double down on the market they did have. Thanks to Adolf Hitler, there was an increased demand for scout cars, signal communication vehicles, and 6x4 all-terrain vehicles such as the G3A and the G4. The G3A were very versatile and were used as survey trucks, mobile print shops, weather stations, and telegraph vehicles. There were also the 4x4 vehicles, such as the L1500, the L1500A, and the L1500S. They even mass-produced engines for German aircraft, submarines, and tanks. This engine is the DB601, and it is a 1,000 to 1,500 horsepower engine. It was designed to suit Germany's most used fighter, the Messerschmitt Bf-109, and the Luftwaffe aircraft. Aside from Hitler, Mercedes-Benz had become the first choice of many Nazi, Italian, and Japanese officials, including Hermann Göring, Benito Mussolini, and Hirohito. But then came the problem of labor. The entire workforce population was now fighting on the front lines. It was all just like a slippery slope. Solving one problem only led to another, and this time, they took very drastic measures. Initially, to meet up with the demand, the company employed women, but soon they realized that women were not enough. Mercedes-Benz then resorted to forced labor. These forced labors were mostly prisoners of war and abducted civilians from Eastern Europe. They were detained in concentration camps and subjected to inhumane living conditions. From there, they are loaned out to companies in exchange for money. There's no proper accommodation, clothing, nourishment, or even rest for these workers. Every day, many died from severe malnutrition, mistreatment, and even torture. Mercedes-Benz profited hugely off this scheme. By 1944, it had solved its labor problem by boasting over 63,000 workers, most of which were forced laborers. It all started with Daimler-Benz, a company that brought together the genius of 2 of the world's oldest manufacturers of motor vehicles, Karl Benz and Gottlieb Daimler. Growing up, Benz always had this dream to build something that would successfully take the place of horses. In his early 40s, after dedicating over 10 years to his work, he finally constructed the Benz patent Motorwagen. Although it was built in 1885, the Motorwagen was patented and unveiled in 1886. With its tiller steering system and top speed of about 7 miles per hour without any gears, it is widely regarded as the first practical modern automobile in the world. This crude vehicle sparked a lot of outrage. The steam cars that came before it had not had a lot of success, so the idea of a petrol-fueled machine was concerning. As you can imagine, this invention had no success. This would change in 1888, when his wife, Bertha Benz, took the car and drove it all the way from Mannheim to Pforzheim without any incident. This remarkable feat changed everyone's initial perception of the vehicle. They say great minds think alike. This is true because while Benz was now perfecting his tricycle, another engineer not too far away in Stuttgart, called Gottlieb Daimler had also brought to life his own idea of a mechanical means of transportation. He invented his motorized carriage in 1886, which had 4 wheels as opposed to the 3 wheels of a Benz motor wagon. You would think that the 2 German engineers would meet up to rub minds off each other, but it is fascinating that they never did. By this turn of the 1890s, both men were already in serious production. Today, we would not count 100 vehicles a year as a serious production, but at the time, we are certain that it was. In 1897, a successful entrepreneur and politician, Emil Jelinek, joined the board of Daimler's company. Jelinek had a habit of competing in car races. As an enthusiast of Daimler cars, he requested a series of racing cars to be modeled for him in 1900. He wanted something slick and fast, the likes of which had not yet been seen. Aside from these specifications, he also requested that they be named after his daughter, Mercedes. Daimler's partner, Wilhelm Maybach, got to work on designing and building the racing car. This car would later become known as the Mercedes 35 HP. Jelinek immediately hit the games with his Mercedes, which was a huge success. This car went on to raise the bar for race cars that were to follow. As a result of this, Daimler's company, Daimler Motor und Gesellschaft, went on to trademark the name Mercedes in 1902. It all started when Benz and CIE and Daimler Motor und Gesellschaft signed an agreement of mutual interest on the 1st of May 1924. However, the 2 companies kept on manufacturing their own automobiles and engines separately. But on the 28th of June 1926, the 2 companies would finally merge to establish Daimler-Benz. Even now, the 2 cannot meet each other. By this time, Benz was already in his 80s and had retired from running the business, and Daimler had died sometime back in 1900 at the age of 65. We have seen how the company managed to survive during the war, albeit unethically. By the time the war ended in 1945, there would be a shift. Daimler-Benz lost all of its assets abroad in one fell swoop. The company also lost all of its foreign subsidiaries, affiliates, and branches. We can imagine that the impact of these losses was enough to bring the company down, but the managerial board proved to be resilient. First, the company was restructured and notably denazified. One of the fundamental changes made was the reinstatement of Otto Hope, who was made to leave the board of management because his wife was Jewish. The following year, because of these drastic changes, the company was able to obtain a production permit from the American occupation authorities. As soon as production could commence, a number of new vehicles were designed, and it proved to be a strong comeback for Daimler-Benz. The first was a remodel of the 170V police patrol car, and a delivery van into a saloon variant in 1947. Even in a less than ideal financial situation, Daimler-Benz managed to turn a profit by the end of 1948. The German automobile industry continued to expand, and by 1954, Daimler-Benz saw a turnover profit that hit the $1 billion mark. To meet up with the increasing demand, Daimler-Benz took over Auto Union, which was an amalgamation of Audi and 3 other German automobile manufacturing companies. By the next decade, Daimler-Benz was the leading producer of trucks and buses. The company had achieved so much success that even the oil crisis of 1973 did not affect its operations. By the turn of the 1960s, a lot of West German companies began to own up to their use of forced labor during the Nazi era and were granting compensation to their victims. Daimler-Benz eventually joined the wagon in 1986 and agreed to pay over $11 billion in reparations. $5.8 million was given in the form of grants to Jewish institutions that provide shelter and home care to the elderly. A similar amount was also given to the German Red Cross to distribute among forced labor survivors in Holland, Belgium, and France. This was a long time coming, and the truth is that after the war, the West German courts repeatedly ruled that companies that made use of forced labor were under no obligation to pay reparations. So while we cannot say why these companies decided to voluntarily do so, we can definitely say better late than never. We would love to know your thoughts on this use of forced labor. Do share them in the comments section. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We have more videos like this coming up. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of them. The Daimler-Benz era came to an end after 72 years in 1998. Merging with the Chrysler Corporation, Daimler-Chrysler was formed, and it was proved to be a German-American success story. By 2010, there were many products in even greater demand. Daimler was producing some of the world's most prestigious cars, and also selling commercial vans, buses, and heavy trucks. Daimler-Chrysler had grown so big that it became difficult to run everything under one company name. In response, investors pushed for a split in the operations. They didn't get their way until 2021, when Daimler CEO Ola Källenius divided the company into Daimler Truck and Mercedes-Benz. This enabled the company to free up some capital and also take advantage of the hidden value. Today, Mercedes-Benz is one of the most valuable luxury car brands in the world. Now you know the story of how 2 brilliant minds simultaneously changed the automobile industry forever.